May the wilderness of your wounds and weariness become the place where you hear that you are already and always held. K.J. Ramsey, licensed professional counselor and author of This Too Shall Last. Introduction. I suppose this book started when I was 15 years old on a beach in Thailand. 2.5 years earlier, when I was 12, my parents moved our family from southern Oregon to a huge metropolis in central China. We left the small town where I had been born and raised, crossing the globe to be missionaries. Every single thing about life was different, including church. I'd grown up in a white, non-denominational church, mostly middle class, with few demographic exceptions. Most of my Christian upbringing came from the evangelical organization Focus on the Family, a limited circle of Christian publishers, and Saturday night TBN, where I religiously watched Carmen Video Gold, a show featuring a solid 30 minutes of Carmen's music videos every single week. Most Christians I knew had a similar background of faith and learned from the same Christian leaders I did. Then suddenly, in one overseas move, my religious world instantly expanded. In China, our church was composed of a community of missionaries from across the world and from a variety of church backgrounds. We met in living rooms, sharing responsibilities of leading worship songs and teaching from the Bible, followed by a lunch together at a local restaurant. In this diverse spiritual community, I learned that relationship with God was more than just memorizing Bible verses, telling people about Jesus, and doing the right things. I learned about passionate worship, charismatic prayer, reading the Bible for myself, and hearing God speak directly to me through the Holy Spirit. It was in that small house church that I first felt real closeness with God, as well as real feelings of distance. At the beginning of my freshman year, the month I turned 15, I experienced a visceral sense of God's presence for the first time. When a new missionary arrived, he showed me a more intimate kind of worship where I pleaded with God to be close to me. In response, I could feel the Spirit of God with me, moving me to tears. It was unlike any experience I had had before, like my black and white faith came into full living color. But in less than 2 months, I noticed that God was inconsistent in answering my call for closeness. One Sunday, I felt overwhelming peace. The next, I felt nothing. The hardest part, though, was the bewildering confusion. I'd stumbled across something wonderful, but I couldn't figure out why the connection was so unstable. I didn't know what brought God close and what interfered. Long before I'd even heard the term attachment science, I was trying to figure out the science of connection with God, trying to identify what wasn't working and why. That year, our family left the cold winter to spend 2 weeks in Thailand, the go-to vacation destination of many missionaries in China. I wanted to stay local, despite the freezing weather, to hang out with my friends and practice with my band, Sanctified Viscosity. We thought viscosity meant viciousness. Only later did we find out it was a scientific term for the density of a liquid. But of course, my parents forced me to go with them on a 2-week vacation to the tropical beaches of Phuket. It was so annoying. I spent each evening alone, watching the sunset on the beach, the sand slowly cooling beneath me as I scribbled away in a journal. I fitfully tried to figure out the mechanics of closeness with God, sketching out diagrams and flowcharts replete with arrows and boxes. I was trying to create a map that would help me connect the dots. My sketches tried to arrange concepts like confession, prayer, worship, silence, close, far, and periods of testing in a way that would help me figure out how to get close. In the end, it seemed that feeling close to God correlated with my behavior, but the pattern wasn't consistent enough to say for sure. The most frustrating part was that I'd greatly expanded my repertoire of ways to connect with God. My range was much larger than the basics I'd learned in elementary Sunday school. So, what was it going to take to feel as though God was near? I wanted to live in the overwhelming peace I felt on those first Sunday mornings. Instead, it felt like an on-again, off-again romantic relationship, making my spiritual life a tumultuous storm, not at all like the fountain of peace I'd been promised. After a while, I couldn't help but wonder how God really felt about me. Amid the turbulence of adolescence, instead of providing needed stability, my relationship with God became a source of heartache and shame. I presumed something was wrong with me, and my best bet was to try to be